So, hi everyone.
Hey,
Hi. So lovely to see so many people. And we were just saying it seems to be a very a popular topic, medicine, because I feel like there's sort of the idea that something may help, um, is something that really draws people to the conversation. And I mean, is there something that can help? We're all here for, I would say, the same reason having these conversations. Some of us are therapists, many of us are interested in the illusory nature of the separate self, what we talk about in non-duality. The idea that there may be a path with awakening, that there are things we can do to speed up the awakening process, for want of a better word. I know Eckhart Tolle talks about it being possible to speed it up. You know, he says that with his writings and his talks, it may speed up the process, which almost sounds paradoxical because he's talking of a process like there's something to do to be somewhere other than where you already are. So when we have meetings like these, it of course does feel like a paradox because we're saying that there might be things that we can do, things we can take, substances, when we know on one level that isn't really necessary, that we have everything we need already. Yet, as many of us know, there are things that we can appear to do, and some of us have had experiences with certain medicines, ayahuasca, psilocybin. They're doing research on psilocybin at the moment, saying it has got that ability to almost open up the awareness, sort of crack through that conditioned mind in a way that, you know, SSRIs, which are currently used to treat depression, perhaps maybe aren't. It's more of a sort of managing the symptoms, traditional antidepressants, whereas there are drugs like psilocybin or ketamine they're doing research in, which may have more that ability to almost penetrate through to sort of, it seems as if there's something different that I can't quite put words to, but it does feel like there's a different use for different substances. And then we have things like turmeric and ginger, you know, simple plants, things that grow in the ground, which contribute to health. We have things like sugar that seem to not contribute to health. So I would say that yes, there are things we can take. There are medicines that appear to be useful. Yeah, Sander's not in this meeting, but if he was, he would always say, "Well, that is a thought." Even just saying that is a thought. You know, how can we ever say something is useful? That is a story we're telling, and there is really nowhere to get or nowhere to go. So it's a sort of paradoxical meeting, and I don't know where we're going to go with it. I just thought it would be interesting to sort of throw it out there and see what people feel like they want to share. And I expect it'll be really, really productive and valuable, hopefully. So we'll go for an hour and a half as always. I think we'll do hands up. That tends to work. Just the react button, and then you do raise hand. Um, and yeah, thanks all for being here. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes. Does anybody want to start? Oliver.
For introduction. Laurie, do you want to start?
sure. I'm Laurie. I'm in the US in Maryland. And the words around non-duality have always been with me, but when I started using the plant medicine, it was like the curtain was pulled back. And I went, oh, okay, that's what these words mean. Like that's what these concepts mean. And I've just really appreciated the use of the plant medicine in moving forward and feeling more grounded in the non-dual conversation. I work in the hospice arena, and I'm very interested in helping people either with difficult diagnoses or at the end of life um, with the plant medicine. So I'm learning to be a server, and it's the only thing that's keeping my sanity in this crazy world.
Thank you. Um, well, firstly, I want to just highlight an important topic that Claire mentioned, that if they can speed up the processes. So I'm not talking about that, but I just wanted to highlight it to come back to it by others probably. But about substances, I wanted to have this general opening into this topic that we can't really generalize what the psychedelics would do. There's no general effect of psychedelics. I was thinking and noted down the different aspects of psychedelics that changing any of them would totally alter the effect and what we are talking about. Firstly, substance. What is it that we are actually talking about? And even for some plants, they might have more than one active ingredients and strains of the plant, and it always depends on what you're talking about. And the dose. Even if taking a particular substance for psychedelics, when you take different dose, it makes a whole difference. Like you're talking about a totally different experience.
Sure.
And the other one is what I would call background, which is the whole story of that person, the spiritual curiosity, the journey that they might have, how much they have been in the inner world, how much they know themselves, because psychedelics aren't an external factor. It's like you yourself are facing your own mind. And the fourth aspect is state of the mind at the time, which is what generally in psychedelic community called set, which is mindset. The emotional state, what has been going on in your life right now, at this moment that you're taking. The fifth aspect that I have listed is body or genetics. Each substance might affect one person differently, very differently. Neurological structure, your neurological receptors, or whatever that there is in that body. And the sixth aspect is setting. How, in which setup, in which situation you take it. If it's in your room, you're with other people, in nature, what have you prepared for the experience? I would say that even if hypothetically you fix fifth of these aspects and just change one of them, you might get a whole different experience. So there's nothing fixed that we can comment that psychedelic is this and does that. It can does anything. But thinking about what would be a common denominator, again, according just to my own idea, I can mention two general effects, which is not the end result. It's two general mechanism of effect which might result in anything. Firstly, I would simply say they shake things up. And obviously the result can be anything. The second thing is that they bring down the barriers or reduce the constraints. Constraints can be anything. Your beliefs, your assumptions, your internalized rules or orders, whatever that you use to comply or accept. out. That was my introduction.
Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah.
I think really, really interesting points there. I just wanted to reflect quickly on the point you said about this state of awareness when taking the substances. And actually, I read a book that Rowena lent me by Ken Wilber, Integral Psychology, and he speaks a lot about peak experiences, which are, I think, what you're describing. You know, you take a substance and you have a sort of very peak spiritual experience, which you can also take from sort of meditating or anything like that. And he says how actually the state that the person is in before that experience makes a difference. You know, if you take it without having done the groundwork, it can even lead to psychosis, you know, derealization disorder. You sort of come back to earth, and you know, you because your nervous system wasn't quite ready, it can be very dysregulating and destabilizing. And I would actually potentially say that can do more harm than good, because then you might become very grandiose. So I've had this fantastic spiritual experience and no one else has, and no one gets me now because I'm enlightened and they're not. Or you become very withdrawn. Oh, the world is nihilistic, and you know nothing matters, and life's meaningless. So I think it's a great book, and Tony will quite like it because he talks about how meditation is helpful actually to do this more sort of sustained, longer term practice, like meditation, you know, self-inquiry. Actually, that is, you know, to a degree that can help build that groundwork. So when you have those peak experiences, it doesn't just shatter your system completely and leave you a total wreck. It can, as you say, just sort of shake it slightly, and you know, like shaking the branches of a tree, things that maybe need to fall can fall, but it's not anything dramatic or catastrophic. So I think that was all I wanted to reflect. And I know, Michael, you've had your hand up as well.
Oh, you said very close to what I was going to say. Um, it seems to me that anything that profoundly alters one's perspective can be earth-shattering, lead to more existential angst and suffering. I think Laurie's experience, I'm sure that she spent a good deal of time tilling the ground, and was ready for this profound shift in perspective. Uh, who knows what the elements are? There's too many variables to determine anything, really. We're conditioned to cause and effect reasoning. And I think from this, whatever it is, this shift in perspective, cause and effect loses its relevance, that everything is the cause and effect of everything. And that negates individual causes and individual effects. Trying to isolate the effects of psychedelics, I think is gosh, a very hit and miss proposition. We can't, every individual is so unique, so beautifully unique. I think unless someone is ready, David Kars went to South America and ingested that medicine that makes you throw up. He was ready. He wrote, came home and wrote Perfect Brilliant Stillness, which is a wonderful book. Became a carpenter. Doesn't talk about it anymore. I don't think that ingesting anything can hurry this, whatever it is, although in some cases it appears to. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. There's no paths in this pathless land, no process. I think Tony had his hand up. You're on mute, Tony.
Well, yeah. Well, perhaps I'm going to be the sole dissenter here. I find myself diametrically opposed to the idea that psychedelics, hallucinogens, can help at all with the what you might call the spiritual path. I think it can actually hinder it because, you know, like Oliver, he was talking a lot about experiences, different different experiences. And, you know, most seekers are looking for some kind of experience. They're looking for some kind of special experience because there is an imagination of, you know, what it's like to, you know, to wake up to your true nature. So the imagination looks for experiences, special experiences. And of course, there's no doubt that hallucinogenics give that special experience. And yeah, when I was in my youth, I think I took LSD about 4 times, so I understand what the experience is. What hallucinogenics do is they kind of mix up the dream state with the waking state. So the stability and continuity that you're used to in the waking state is disrupted by the hallucinogenic effects that are more akin to a dream state, a dream sleep state. Now, when you consider that a lot of non-dualists talk of the waking state as if it's a dream. I mean, you've heard this many times. People say, oh, we're living in a dream, it's an illusion. Well, with hallucinogenics, you're adding even more you're adding even more illusions to that dream, because the dream and the waking state come together. So that, see, in a traditional sense, in spirituality, one should be looking for silence. One should be going back to the source, looking for silence, turning away from the senses. But what are hallucinogens doing? They're ramping up the senses. They're not just ramping up the senses, they're distorting the senses, they're amplifying certain characteristics, they're producing a discontinuous experience. Now, it's an interesting experience. It certainly is an interesting experience. You know, by taking LSD, you're creating your own movie, and it's very interesting to experience. But it cannot help with spiritual growth, because the whole point of spiritual growth is to turn back from the senses and to go back to the source, to go back to the stillness. And hallucinogens aren't going to do that. I mean, certainly Oliver, they are going to shake things up, as you say, but it's not shaking it up in any productive way in terms of spiritual growth. So, yeah, so that's the point I think I want to make.
Dave, you go next. As you're stunned into silence by Tony's wonderful point. David?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, talking to me. Okay. I suppose it's inevitable that this meeting, although it's headed medicine, is going to end up about psychedelics. It seems to be where it keeps on heading. I would like to take Tony up on some of the things.
It was in the title, David. Psychedelics. It's in the title of the meeting.
Medicine, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit more than that if you read the whole thing.
Okay, well, so be it. But it takes, psychedelics take different people in different ways. And so there's as many people that will have what they regard as a deep experience as people that just see pink elephants with yellow spots and they enjoy themselves too. You can use partying in a very superficial way. And of course, the distortion of the senses is great fun. Past a certain point, I think you automatically find that the senses have crossed up so much and they become so unreliable that they're disregarded. They're not amplified, they're actually disregarded. And what you're left with, without your, no, I see you shaking your head, Tony. I have been past where the senses have any relevance. I'm telling you that categorically. And when you realize that you can't rely on your senses, you can smell colors, you can see sounds, instead of, after a while, the novelty of that wears off. You've seen it so many times and you disregard it. And there is no hallucinatory state anymore. There is no sensory distortion because you've just let it drop because it doesn't matter anymore. What you're left with is who is underneath all the senses and all the thoughts and all the distortions that you've actually just left. I have to say that in a lot of ways, psychedelics messed it up for me because I took to it so well, and it was my go-to place. It was home. And because of that, I couldn't imagine that anybody else who told me whatever, people would say, oh yeah, I've experienced that too, but I used coffee or whatever. And I'd think, yeah, they're just saying that because they've got no idea where I've just been. And how could I tell whether that's right or not? I really couldn't tell. So I became, in a way, what should I say? I couldn't imagine that there was any other way to do it. And this is what Claire said, is that it's your go-to spot. It's what you do. It's what you identify yourself with, and it's where you go to be at home. And so in some ways it was very helpful, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have dropped in and seen. It was my first indication that there was anything more to things than just what you see, than partying, fast cars, whatever. And having sort of dropped in and seen that, I then became probably what you might call a psychedelic snob, which is that everybody that hasn't actually seen it, they haven't lived, they don't know a thing. And it's only comparatively recently, and I think I always wanted to be able to dispense with it. And I remember dunking my head into it more and more frequently, leaving less and less time between the occasions, wanting it to keep going. And it never worked, obviously, because you get a look over the wall and then you're back again. These days, I don't even hanker after it. I don't feel that I'm missing anything. I don't feel that I need to look at it that way. And perhaps I always wanted to have that, to be in a place where I didn't feel that I needed it. I didn't need it to see what I see. And I genuinely don't. That's not to say that my waking life is tripping my tits off 24/7, because I'm not. I'm just kicking around the same as everybody else. Life is fairly mundane. It's fairly day to day. I get up, I clean my teeth, what have you. I can't say that psychedelics had no value in my life. They made a huge difference, and they actually made a thread through my life. I have had to struggle with equating what I see with psychedelics with the rest of my life, because I tended to write off everything else. I no longer write off everything else. I see it as part of it. I've not written off psychedelics. It's just that it was a step on the way, and I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it. But I remember years ago when I was younger, I thought it was the answer to everything. And I remember taking my friend John out one night. We went for a walk at night, and I thought, John's going to love this. He had a lovely time. I remember him thinking he was a dog and running around on all fours and barking. He saw nothing apart from the ludicrous sensory distortion. And lots of people do that. And other people decide that they're going to be terrified. And, so you can't just say to somebody, oh, you've got to try this. It's a magic pill. It's going to show you God, because it's not. And I think Oliver said words to that effect. And I think it might be more reasonable to say it might make of you more of who you are in the first place, if you're actually leaning in that direction. If you kind of see it anyway, all it's going to do is make more of who you are. It's not going to change a damn thing. It's just going to show you more of what you're already looking at. I could ramble on for ages, but everyone's got their hands up, so whatever. Thanks for listening.
I was going to say, I put my hand up when Tony was talking, just to say I agree with you, Tony, and I think that needs to be celebrated in itself. I think you're spot on. I think it can create this sort of peak experience that then becomes a goalpost for someone to get back to. And as Dave said, you have this fantastic experience and it becomes something to hanker after for such a long time. I mean, we can't talk abstractly about this. We can only talk from our own experience. And like Dave, I was in my mid-20s. I was living in Amsterdam. I was out with friends, took cannabis, and for me, that was the thing that did it. I'd always had this kind of sense, I am my mind, I am my thoughts. And for some reason, I just had this kind of insight into I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my mind. And I called that awakening. I gave it all sorts of names. I made it fantastic. I used to write so much about it, this fantastic experience. And then it was funny because I took psilocybin, the magic mushrooms, when I lived out there as well, because I was sort of interested in spirituality at that point. I'd had a bit of therapy and was sort of working on myself, but it didn't do it for me. As you said, Dave, it doesn't necessarily do the same thing for different people. It happened to just be that maybe it was the THC or something. But then I came back to the UK and didn't take it anymore. And it was hell. It was absolutely awful because I'd equated that experience to that drug. And I couldn't get it back naturally. It seemed like I couldn't get it back naturally. And so you might say that was a very dangerous, silly thing to do because I was deeply depressed, really suicidal at certain points. This disconnection when you've had that awakening, you've had that opening, I guess I'd call it a dark night to the soul. And I wasn't in the place where I was really ready for that experience. I don't think it almost came as a shock to the system. It was a bit too soon, I think. And it took 10 years really to sort of process that, I would say, and to really integrate that. And to now, like you say, Dave, to feel that I'm just as content now, going for a walk, seeing friends, sitting with my cats, that brings me just as much joy as that experience did in Amsterdam. But it took a really long time to get there, just because, as Tony said, you make it some sort of a goal, and by doing that, you create separation. There was the me who was the mind, and then there was the awakened me. There were almost two me's, and there became more of a distance in between them. Or that's at least how it seemed. Obviously, that wasn't the reality, but that was sort of the impression the drug gave because it was an external substance and because it gave these physical experiences as well. It was very easy to confuse that. Yeah, I do agree with you. But again, like Dave, I agree that it was part of the journey. It was something that I experienced. I don't know if I would have had that in my own time. I suspect I probably would have done because did sort of have a leaning towards spirituality before that. But you can't possibly know, as Michael says, there are no specific paths. There's no thing we can really do. I don't know if there was any agency. Could I have even chosen differently? I was out with friends. We just went to a coffee shop. That was just what happened. Was it me making that choice? I couldn't possibly say. So I can just share my experience, and it may be that people resonate. It may be that people say, right, that's it. I'm never going to Amsterdam and taking weed. But, people can interpret this how they like. But I think when we share honestly from our own experiences, that's probably the best we can do. So I think I'll leave it there. Oliver, you were next, I think, but you've put your hand down. Yeah. Sorry, I hope I didn't throw you off track.
No, it's fine. I wanted to hear others.
Razia, were you next?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Well, at the the bottom line always is that we have no choice. Our awakening will happen the way it happens. And there's no one there that really can choose as such. But there is the appearance of choice. And what I was going to say was lots of what we say has been backed by research. And I know there was this documentary on Netflix that spoke a lot about the different psychedelics and how the effect that these psychedelics had. And but the thing is, I think it was a 10-MeO, I don't know, psilocybin, some magic mushrooms, I'll just say that, right? Could actually get rid of depression. And they said it was just like a once-off thing. If you took 10 MEOs of this, it could treat depression, you know? And I found that was very fascinating because they'd done a whole lot of research on that, got a whole lot of people to come in and gave them 10 MEOs of magic mushrooms, and it had apparently worked. So, I mean, things like that, I wouldn't say no to, you know, because obviously depression is becoming so like common nowadays. But also with the psychedelics, like Claire, I also had some cannabis when I was in university, and I really enjoyed it because I laughed and laughed and laughed. It is so awesome. But did I want to do it again? No. That was it. Yeah. But now, you know, when I look at it, like, I mean, all I remember is laughing, right? And I had such a good time with this friend, but she carried on. And yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, like a natural shift, you know, and you shift naturally. Like the first time I shifted, it was like completely different, but I had like a second shift, like, you know, after I met Michael. And kind of like it was like that, kind of like when you take drugs, you know, like I went back like on YouTube and I read about people taking ayahuasca and magic mushrooms and stuff like that because I want like a second-hand experience if you can't have a first-hand one. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was thinking about that. Like when I shifted the second time, I remember I was standing in my son's yard, you know, where he does all his business, his workshop is. And I was looking and I could see suddenly the trees all became like almost like crystalline. It was amazing. It was like almost like jewel-like, you know. And yeah, I was looking at it and it was unreal. And I think that also that's how it is when people take LSD and stuff. I'm not sure, but that's what I actually thought about. And yeah, so I just don't know much about psychedelics, but I wouldn't say like a no to it or yes or whatever. But I would go look at the research and see, you know, if there is like some sort of a way that it can be used for benefit, why not, you know? And at the same time, there is no choice. We have no choice. Whatever is happening happens. That's life.
Hmm.
Thanks.
For most of my life, there wasn't psychedelics available. I'm sure I would have taken them if they were available. I spent 16 years as a practicing alcoholic and searching the rest of my life, searching for relevance, searching for something to ex ease this existential angst, and depression, and anxiety. Um, I experienced a profound shift one night in Las Vegas. And since then, it was, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago, I feel no need to take anything to alter. Well, I can't say that really. I do take Lexapro for anxiety, so I suppose that's taking a medicine. It has improved my life a great deal, and my son's, who also suffers from anxiety. Um, I have no desire to improve or polish my life, no desire to change it. I don't meditate. I don't do anything. I don't think that we do anything. Here it feels like flying headless through a vast unknown unknowableness. I find it exhilarating every moment. I was so excited about this meeting and seeing all of these people that I've grown to love. I found myself agreeing with Tony, and which surprised me. Um, I love the spontaneity of simply being. It's very childlike, innocent. Like Raj has said, there's no choice. If you factor out choice, forgiveness becomes irrelevant. There's nothing to forgive. You don't forgive a 2-year-old for wetting a diaper or breaking a bottle or something. It's just a free world. It's just exciting and wonderful. To be human is the greatest gift in the universe. We're a tiny bit of the universe that's able to see the universe. Although it be objectified and very tiny as a slit into the whatever the world might be, we can imagine dinosaurs, flying pterosaurs with 18-foot wingspans. Oh my God, who can do that? We are the only place where love and beauty exists. When we die, the universe will go dark again. There was no love and beauty in the dinosaurs. Only when we came along with this imaginary separation did love and beauty come along with us. We are the jewel, the manifested jewel of the universe. And we spend our life trying to polish something that doesn't even exist. Like David, I could ramble on and on. Oh, Claire, you had your hand up.
I love it. It's not rambling on, it's beautiful. I love I mean the idea that this is it, this is what we have. In a way it is terrifying. It's like we've got to preserve it, we've got to protect it. It's so precious, it's so important and valuable. So the idea that, you look around and you see people in distress, you see sort of destruction to the planet, of course that's going to create a sort of sense of anxiety. It's really natural. So anything we can do to support with that and to actually enjoy this precious gift, as you say, which is what we have, and it's our window. I would say this is what we need to be talking about. So Razia was talking about depression and medication, and that was what inspired me to raise my hand. Chris and I were talking earlier in the week about SSRIs and research that's been done about how actually it may be that they're not necessarily as helpful as some people might think they are. There's SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so they keep more serotonin in the system. And serotonin has been linked to positive mood. It's sort of something that they've linked. And as Oliver said, I sort of sometimes wonder really if it's just a kind of shaking of something. I've got clients who have started taking SSRIs and they've said, I feel like it's making a difference because I feel different. And then I sort of think, okay, well, that's good in a way because they're feeling like something's improving, and it gives them that hope that they can get better. Maybe that's just the plaster, the band-aid they need for the next few months as we do the deep integrative work that both Chris and I do with clients. So it may be that, that there is a purpose to be served with them. But I also sort of think, well, is it also that they're inhibiting genuine emotions? I had a client who has been on antidepressants for 20 years, and she came off them in about May, and she was able to actually feel again. She said, I feel like I wasn't feeling properly. All the emotion came out, a lot of anger came out, a lot of sadness came out. So I also sort of wonder, really, are these antidepressants people are being prescribed? Is it sometimes that they're covering things up that maybe need to come out? And as Chris and I were also saying, obviously there's a vested interest in them because Big Pharma gets a lot of money if they sell things that are clinically proven at the moment. As Sylvan was saying, actually, that, they're not stupid, these big companies. If there's something that has been proven to work, like psilocybin, like ketamine, the things that they're researching at the moment, they're going to be the next drug. They're going to be the next antidepressant. Psilocybin is going to be legalized in the UK. It is going to be prescribed as an antidepressant. You know, the big companies are going to jump on that at some point. And I think these kind of conversations we're having are almost shaping that. You know, it's therapists coming together talking about this. People sort of, we're going to talk to other people about this as well. And that conversation is going to get out there. So the more we do discuss this and look at our experiences, our clients' experiences, what we feel is true for us, you know, it may be that we are literally shaping the industry. We may be kind of we may be influencing this, and if we see health as a lack of a sense of separation, and if things like psilocybin, ayahuasca, they can kind of appear to contribute to the dissolving of that conditioned mind, then I would say absolutely they're better than SSRIs. I've said it. But as Razi was saying, you know, the research is being done, and we'll see, you know, let's see if they catch up. It will be interesting. I think that was all I wanted to say. Dave.
Okay. Only a couple of things. It occurred to me listening to everybody talking that it's a funny thing that not everybody, but it seems that a majority of people that are into, I'm not that familiar with the term non-duality. It's a new term to me. Well, this was last year or so, but but we all of us have had at least some small experience of psychedelics. And what, you might ask, has that got in common? What has that got to do with non-duality? And it's because we have all felt that it opens a door of some sort in order to see further in. The substances themselves are of no consequence at all. They just mess around with the senses. What they do is open a door to see something through the door, that by focusing on the actual substance, whether it's psilocybin, LSD, whatever, you're focusing on the key that you're sticking in the door. The key is not interesting, it just opens the door. What you're looking at is what's on the other side of the door. And we all have, or most of us, have messed around with psychedelics in connection with, for the same reason that we're all here tonight talking about non-duality. We see that there's a connection between the one thing and the other. We can talk till the cows come home over exactly the nature of that connection, what it does for each of us individually. And no doubt it does something in some ways different for each of us individually. And overall, what it does is it does the same thing for us all individually, because that's why we've all played with the idea. So yeah, for me, it was the be all and end all for a long, long time. And I was amused recently because I was sitting in a jacuzzi at this hotel that I go to from time to time, and I was talking to this girl I was sharing the jacuzzi with. She worked in a circus. She was delightful. She was covered in tattoos. She'd got brilliantly coloured hair, and she was a trapeze artist. And she had just discovered LSD, and she was so excited about it, and she was telling me all about it. And I didn't say, I did. She was delightful, and it was her excitement was so infectious. It was lovely to hear her, and I didn't let on at all. I didn't say anything at all. I made a couple of remarks that you'd expect from an old boy with grey hairs that he was sharing the jacuzzi with, and said, "Oh, it sounds a bit dangerous to me," and things like that. But she had to tell me all about it. What I wanted to say to her was that you're going to go full circle. You're going to have the most marvelous time, and don't not do it. But what you're going to do is you're going to come full circle and think, gosh, that was good. I'm glad I did that. But it would be, you know, whatever, arrogant, smart ass, whatever, to say things like that. So I just listened, and it was so nice to hear her at the beginning of her journey. I really enjoyed it. The other thing is that, Claire, you said something about using psilocybin for therapy, and it is legalized in the UK, but only to a very few people to be used as therapy. I was at the what they call the Breaking Convention conference a couple of years ago, which is a sort of it's a UK, well, it's a worldwide national conference on psychedelics. It's held every other year, and we were lectured by a psychiatrist who uses it in his practice quite legally, by another chappie who's assistant professor of psychology at another university. He is legally allowed to mess around with 5-MeO, with LSD, with just about as many psychedelics as you can think of in his research. So it's already not a complete no-no, although the powers that be are, hanging onto the handcuffs pretty tightly, because unless you've played with it, you can only make assumptions about it. And I think that the media, probably in the 60s, were very much responsible for it being demonized. And we had people jumping out of third-story windows, and Charlie Manson murdering people, and so on and so forth. And of course, this was all blown up by things like the Daily Mail. And Timothy Leary, who everybody reveres, or a lot of people revere, he used it as a blunt instrument to batter the establishment with. And he wrote some very interesting stuff, and he was a very clever guy. He wrote, no matter what he wrote, but I got to feel that he didn't do anything for its general acceptance. And Aldous Huxley, who also seemed to know him, became critical of Timothy Leary and saw him as being counterproductive to getting anything like it accepted and helping it to be demonized. But here we all are, and a high proportion of us, to some extent, have played with it. And so if you ask yourself why that could be, apart from picking over the details, and even Tony, who is, by the sound of it, not particularly pro, he played with it too, and he saw something in it. And what was he looking for? Why did he choose psychedelics to look for things? Why didn't he choose strong coffee or Jack Daniels or whatever? He chose psychedelics to look at, and he formed his own opinion, and that's fair enough. But he thought that there was something going on there. There was a doorway that he might be able to step through.
No, it was just fun.
Well, that's nice, Tony, because it can be fun.
It was just for fun.
Oh,
Actually, the main problem I've got at the moment is trying to get out of my head this image of you in a sauna with a female tattooed trapeze artist.
oh, she was lovely.
I can't get that image out of my head now.
No, me neither. It stuck with me. It was a few years ago, but it stuck with me ever since. It was marvelous. I loved her to bits. She was great. Yes, yes, I can see that. I can see her in my mind's eye now, all bubbling over with enthusiasm, and she had to tell this old boy who happened to be in the jacuzzi with her. It was lovely.
It wasn't a dream, was it? Under the influence.
It could have been. It could have been a dream. If it wasn't,
Must have been a really hot jacuzzi or sauna.
Yeah, no, she was. I saw her there a couple of times. She was spectacular.
Thanks,
We're
Dave.
all tattooed. We're all tattooed trapeze artists.
Yeah, there you are, and you don't even need psychedelics to visualize her. You can see her already.
Is that you, Dave? Anything else?
Oh, probably. I can rattle on for ages, can't I? But yeah, that'll do. That's fine. Thank you.
I think Oliver, you were next.
Yeah, there are different points that I would talk about, but about not becoming medicine, verified medicine. There are pessimistic points that you all have heard, that it might not be so much beneficial for drug companies because it's not something that they sell regularly. People take a few of them every day. They might be too effective. Even people say that. They won't have customers, returning customers. But even looking at the positive view, not so much pessimistic, due to the factors that I mentioned, even if they isolate a particular substance like pure psilocybin in particular dose, still there are so much unpredictable factors that health system is reluctant to go into it, because their gold standard is to prescribe something that has the most predictable outcome. And since it's not guaranteed, it's something new to medicine, although they are trying to go into that direction, but it still contradicts the whole general approach to health. Unless there are specialized people who take care of the practice. But to me, there are two whole different aspects when we talk about psychedelics. Firstly is the view of benefits and risks, which is a valid discussion. We can talk about it. The other view is putting aside the benefits and risk, looking at what it actually does to learn from it. It's like putting the mind in a special state that it's not used to. And out of this special states, unexpected thing might happen that we can look at with curious eyes, just pure curiosity, to see what's new there. Actually, to me, an ideal mindset to go into those experiences is not to have any intention, to have a total openness that whatever comes, I'm open to see. And that's actually when you get the most out of it, because it's totally different from our normal state of mind, which we are always driven by benefits or cost calculations. It breaks all that we are used to. So whatever that does it opens you to new learning. Not learning to accumulate, but learning to discover for those who are actually curious. That's me.
Thanks, Oliver. Razia.
Okay, thanks, Oliver. That was quite a few points and something to think about. And I'm just going back to what Claire said, right, about big pharma. They are the ones that are going to influence psychedelics and what's happening in the future, right? And we have to be very careful, because once again, it will be like a question of them wanting to make a profit from the whole thing, and yeah, that could become like a big problem. And then what I was going to talk about was, the legality of it. In South Africa, they made cannabis legal. So I'm telling you, like, little children in school were having like stuff and things like that, like biscuits. They were making biscuits and sweets out of it. And it was like gone totally out of hand. So, and you couldn't even monitor it, because it was in the biscuit. So now they've got rid of that, like making it into edibles. So yeah, and but it's still legal. You can still plant cannabis. So if anyone wants to move to South Africa, you're welcome.
I'll book my flight.
Yeah. And Yeah, I think that was it. Thanks. And yeah, Oliver brought up the other points.
Thanks, Razia.
Yes.
Sylvan, you were next. Wendy, to raise your hand, I've just seen your question. It's the react button at the bottom. It looks like a little heart. You just press that and put raise hand if you've managed to. Sorry, Sylvan.
Yes. Well, what I wanted to say is actually, I'm afraid I have no experience of any of the drugs which have been spoken about right now. And I've never been tempted, to be fair. I think that we've got such an amazing existence that I'm far more interested to find out about that. And I've always believed that we have the means already to deal with the challenges we are presented with. Uh, One of the things is I don't want to defend the big labs and the people who do research, but I do think there is value in some people testing before anybody else can use. I'm going to say something. It was a joke that somebody said one day, but I think it applies. Is to say, who was the first person sitting in a field who pick up some dry grass, roll it up in a leaf, stuck it in the mouth, and set it on fire? I mean, this is the first cigarette. And I think that, yes, we can do silly things like that without knowing what the consequences will be. And I think that without just other people's words saying, you've got to try this because it was fun for me, I don't think that's sufficient to attempt some substances which can do a lot of damage at the end of the day. So I think there is a place for the medical research as well as empirical research that we can learn from primitive tribes or anything like that, by all means. But let's research it first. The other thing which I live with is the fact that I don't know. I've got a passion for life. I think there is something already in me. I don't need to. I don't want a substance to reveal that to me. I think that it's very dualistic. What I'm saying, you're probably going to shoot me down, because I think that I've got something in me which is just me, and I can deal with it. And I'm interested in finding out what I mean. Dave talked about the key. I think I'm the key. And there is a door I can open, and that's what been my passion during my life. And it still goes on, obviously. So I'll have to live a lot longer to find the answer, but that's the whole point. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Sylvan. Tony.
Yeah, Razia, I didn't know that happened in South Africa. They legalized cannabis here in Thailand as well about a year or so ago, and it turned into a complete mess because originally they legalized it for medicinal purposes only, and then you just had this sort of proliferation of shops appearing just selling it and bypassing the medicinal requirement. And now the government's been backtracking on it. They're probably not getting as much tax as they thought they would get. But anyway, look, what I was going to say is any kind of change of mental state is always appealing. If a drug can produce a change, it's always entertaining for the mind. I mean, alcohol is a beautiful drug. I mean, the way that releases inhibitions and kind of makes you feel relaxed, that has certain qualities. But I found that when I was when I was a student, I used to smoke a lot of cannabis, and at that particular time, I started to do meditation practice. And yeah, we need to get more non-duality into this conversation because there's not much non-duality so far. But anyway, for me, non-duality is the direct experience of realizing that awareness is fundamental. That's the core of it. And when I started practicing meditation, I was also smoking cannabis, and I discovered a very interesting thing, is that the clarity that I was experiencing, that sort of clarity of stillness of mind, when I smoked cannabis, it was like throwing a blanket on it. It just dulled the whole experience. And you know, it took like 2 or 3 days for that effect to disappear before the clarity came back. And that's what I'm in awe of. You see, you know, it's funny. I listened to Michael, and he's in awe. He describes this beautifully. Michael is in awe of the wondrousness of the world, the faces here, the little gestures, the what you see. You're in awe of this wondrous nature of life that's produced by your objectifying brain. But I'm not in awe of any of that. I'm not in awe of any of that. What I'm in awe of is the deep, profound bliss of silence. That's what I'm in awe of. Not what's happening externally. And that's just another way of saying that that psychedelics, which are just changing the perception, distorting it, heightening it, is really going in the wrong direction. It's going in the opposite direction of what the spiritual seeker should be going, which is inwards towards the source. And if you try and do that when you're on psychedelics, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. The mind is going to be too active. It's not going to reach that profound stillness. It's working against it. So I have absolutely no regrets about taking LSD. It was a very interesting experience. But Dave, I wasn't doing it because I was trying to find out the secrets of the cosmos. You know, it was just a bit of fun.
Could I butt in there? Could I butt in there, Tony? And I'd like to say that it was, for me, I wasn't doing it. I was doing it also for fun, and it was just because I found that the so-called sort of hippie scene when I was in my teens appealed to me. And what you did was that you got good at rolling joints, and you took LSD and anything else that you could get your hands on, and it was just for fun. And the psychedelics, for quite a long time, were just out of pure amusement and the delight of the sensory distortions. And I didn't get fed up with those for what seemed like a long time. And I can remember a couple of things where I suddenly found that it let me into something deeper. And one of them was, it's funny really, it was an occasion where I was just sat on my own, and I was noticing what I was dressed in, and I was noticing my long hair and the whole thing that seemed to be important to me as my presentation. And psychedelics seemed to be linked up with this sort of hippie type image. But the two things have no connection. And it wasn't that I suddenly thought, this is ridiculous, what am I doing? But it's just that I saw that the one thing had nothing to do with the other, because what I was looking at was just this childish image that I was projecting. And the next thing that got significant to me was I was sat in a room, and my then girlfriend was having a sort of a disagreement with somebody she was talking to. Now, I was tripping and she was tripping, and I don't know about Mike, who she was talking to, but the argument, or such as it was about whether the ego could be completely swept away with psychedelics. And Mary was quite desperately clinging onto the idea that it was not possible. She was not wanting to let go of the edge of the cliff and let herself be washed. And it suddenly, I wasn't a participant at all. I just happened to be in the room. And the conversation, which was just going on in the background of my life at the time, suddenly fell into place. And I realized that Mike was right and that you could. And I dropped right in. And I can't say that I became nobody, but such a lot of me was swept away. And I could see what it could be used for. And I wasn't looking for anything. I went around there to sit in a nice place and listen to Mike's stereo was all. And the whole thing was accidental. And it seems to me now that although I didn't know that I was on any particular trajectory, I already was, but wasn't aware of it. I'd look at other people before, when the only drug I'd heard of was double diamond lager. I'd look at other people and I'd think that they must know something that I don't know. And and I'd talk to people thinking, what's the secret? What's going on here? And I didn't even know what questions to ask. I didn't know what I was looking for or anything. And I was looking for something. And I thought it was the sort of hippie scene. I thought, oh, a new identity, a new game to play. And in a way, it was a sprat to catch a mackerel, because the hippie scene is nothing to do with non-duality, psychedelics, or anything else. But it was what attracted me in my superficial longing for something. And what I discovered was something so much deeper and so much more addictive, if you like. And it's never left. It's never left. It's changed its nature over the years. And it was a long, long time before I started to realize that it was possible to actually leave that stage behind. And as people have been saying, that no, you don't need psychedelics. But I needed psychedelics to find that out, if that's not a bit of a paradox. These days, I don't miss it or anything. It's nice memories, and that's about the whole thing. Anyway, I'll stop because I could rattle on for ages.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I think, Wendy, you managed to put your hand up.
I just want to say that mushrooms have been very therapeutic for me, and also a lot of fun. And this last time that I did some, I mean, I literally went poof, and it was a great experience. But I mean, I don't consider it any different than any other experience that I appear to have. But I certainly do enjoy mushrooms, and I do appreciate the healing that's happened because of them. And I intend probably to do some today, depending on how I feel, if I'm in the right state of mind. So that's just my 2 cents. I think it can be like anything in life. It can be, just whatever happens, like Raza said, we don't really have a choice. Life just dances as it does. And so I'm just along for the ride, I guess. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank
It's nice to hear your voice, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. Now I got to try to put my hand down. Oh, there it is.
It's okay, it'll disappear. After the event I spoke of, I was left with absolutely nothing, and not even nothing. I find this most peculiar circumstance that human beings apparently are in, excuse the phone. The only thing we have, there's no silence, there's no inner world. All we have is this spontaneous jazzland band that's arising in the flow of every moment. Some people call it a dream. I don't think it's a dream, but it's not real. We live in a world of named objects. That's all we have. That's all we are. But look at how complex and beautiful it is. How inventive the human mind is. Electric cars, watches. This pseudo-reality is the only thing we'll ever have. And it doesn't last that long. It'll be over. If you're fortunate, your hair will be white and Yeah, you'll be looking forward to a hospice worker. Uh, um, it's so utterly delightful, and most human beings spend their life polishing bricks, trying to make themselves better, trying to improve, trying to get rid of the guilt or the shame or the whatever it is. We can't work on ourselves. I sought therapy over the years because I was ripe. Life was too painful for me to go on. I had to talk with another, and the ones I spoke with were lovely. I love therapists. I would love to hear from Christopher. What do you think of all this non-dual blather?
Right. Um, well, let me start by saying I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic. So chemicals and all sorts of things have been a big part of my life for a period of time. There's no doubt for me a part of that was all about seeking. And then in a period of being clean and sober, I really started the work of looking into the spiritual journey. Of course, Eckhart Tolle, uh, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Krishnamurti, Wei Wu Wei, and the whole non-dual. For me, and there was a period I was desperate, and I realized all the reading, all of that stuff, all that was not going to make it happen. Did a lot of meditation. I went back using, and I lost literally everything. Um, and then when I started the process of getting out of that again, um, and I met a man who was deeply spiritual, and I returned to meditation, and spending a lot of time in nature and beginning to understand how to look at nature, to be in nature. At that same time, I was still going through a lot of emotional turmoil, and something happened in a moment of literal breakdown, of huge pain. Suddenly this warmth came up through me, and just the utter joy of being. I had no clue what it was at the time. I had a wife that had just tried to take her life, but I knew everything was going to be fine. That didn't mean I wouldn't feel pain, I wouldn't suffer, I wouldn't feel anger. Everything was going to be fine. There was something that was deeply transpersonal. And I wasn't aware of what that meant at the time. It started to kind of reveal itself. It changed my whole understanding, it broke down a kind of, the way I look at it is, it started a process of unlearning certain conditioning of my being. Today I look at it, it was something that was within me that was untouched by any experience I'd ever had. And within that part, it was just joy of being. Um, and I think, as a, we're all kind of told that, we should get our self-worth from what we do, what we have. Um, and for me, that's kind of based on, it's on a basis of sand. Uh, so I know within each one of us, there is something that is untouched by anything we've ever gone through. There's no doubt in my mind. And how can we connect to that part of us? Um, I also look deeply at kind of, very much interested in kind of the quantum, everything is energy, um and if we look at certain things, our thoughts are energy. Um and as much as I love sort of the passive meditations, I also really like some of these more active meditations, which kind of put us in a state of joy, which starts to circulate healing chemicals in our body. These are the things that we're seeing arise right now. So I think for me, there's so many different types of awakening, and we can have the moments of losing ourselves in music, in dance. Um, and there was this time where all I ever wanted was just that non-duality, just give it to me. What Eckhart Tolle was telling me, how do I think that's loosened for me very much, you know. Um, there's a part that's there. Um, you talk about, if you read I Am That, and Nisargadatta Maharaj is almost permanently in this state of non-duality. I think it's not really hugely realistic for us all to be in that constant. So how can we bring that part of that into our everyday life, and bring that to other people, you know? So that's where, as far as Claire and I spoke about, the medications, I'm no fan of it. I'm very open to some of these plant medicine. I've done mushrooms, I've done lots of MDMA. I've had incredible experience on MDMA, ketamine, you know, but those are more in the past for me because of I went too far with those things. But I've seen some incredible stuff and heard some incredible things with people taking ayahuasca, seeing, and if we can also look at some of the kind of elements that can come up, it's like with ayahuasca, you almost are faced with a lot of your shadow stuff. And if you can go through those, it can reveal a lot to ourselves. So I think spirituality is, there's so much to it. And it can happen in the most simple, wonderful ways. Um, and it's also, for me, some kind of spiritual understanding. It could be the most simple, is necessary for good health anyway.
I've got to say, Chris, it's so lovely to listen to you speak and to be here with you. For those of you who don't know, Chris and I did our 5-year training together. So we've really been through it, and I put the link to this in our WhatsApp group. We've got a group of about 40. We did a transpersonal training, so this should be right up their street, what we're talking about here. And it may be that they didn't see it, but out of everyone, Chris messaged me and said, "Oh, I saw your meeting, I'm really interested to join." And I just think that's so wonderful, because what we're doing, bringing this to our clients and to sort of the world of traditional therapy, I guess you could call it, it's so lovely to hear. Well, yeah, the people you're quoting, I completely feel that this is the way that things may be shifting, or hopefully are shifting. So yeah, and listening to you share, it kind of feels like we've come sort of full circle or something. So I just wanted to say thank you, and really, really appreciate you being here. And I'm sure everyone else does as well.
Right.
Aware of time, we've got 7 minutes. I was going to quickly just say thank you to Laurie, who posted something in the chat, and I really resonated with, about the ego doesn't disappear. You just recognize that it's the ego, not the intrinsic self. And I really, really resonate with that. Oh my gosh, this sort of, it's not an ego death, these experiences. It's a kind of seeing what it actually is. So, and everyone there's this kind of seeking to kill or destroy the ego. And it's, you don't want to destroy yourself, because you can't really function without the ego. It's sort of just seeing that it doesn't need to possess or take you over. It's almost like disarming it rather than destroying it. So I thought that was a really, really valid point, and I'm going to share your points in the the YouTube thing as well, because I think they were really interesting, your link as well. That was all I was going to say. So Razia, and then hopefully Dave and Michael will have time for you guys.
Okay, thanks, Claire. It was a nice meeting. I love you, Christopher. Love what you shared. We all, most of us have been addicted to substances or things, so we can identify with much of what you have said. And at the same time, that the no choice thing gets rid of the guilt and the shame, because we have no choice really. But I don't know. Sometimes we have to go through that to feel the guilt, to feel the shame of what we have done, to make amends. And it's so beautiful. The way you spoke, I love that. And you have, what can I say? That you'll be in my thoughts. Thank you.
Dave.
Yeah,
David?
only briefly, because we've only got about 3.75 minutes now or something. It's interesting and challenging for me, having met all you guys and being part of this non-duality thing, because I had always, and I still have, I suppose, difficulty in separating my erstwhile psychedelic life with what's going on now. And I'm listening to all of you, and I was thinking that when I was listening to Christopher just now, that the stuff that people are saying makes me feel that I don't have as good a grip on it as I should have, and there's still a bit of me which thinks that I can see more using other methods, and it's not so, because I'm listening to everybody and I'm learning from everybody that something that I've assumed all my life isn't actually so, and that you can you are complete on your own in yourself. You can take what you like. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can take anything. It makes no difference either one way or another, and that's why there's no real need to do it. And I think we're understanding the depth that there is in all of us, as it is, without any assistance, without any outside help. But it's nice to share it with everybody, and I feel so fortunate just having stumbled on all you guys, because it's what I was looking for. It's what I wanted. That's that's it.
Oh,
No. I was going to say, sorry, Michael, I was going to say you can have the last word, but I've just seen Tony's face, which is just so bloody difficult. So I'm sure we'll have time for both of you. Sorry, Tony, I meant nothing by that.
Yeah.
I related to what Christopher said very much. I read I Am That so many times I wore out 2 copies and underlined and dog-eared it. I read everything the Sirgarada wrote or whatever of his minions wrote. Ramesh Balsekar, which was his main protege, said those experiences like that warmth you felt are free samples. Um, that's all they are, is a hint of your own incredible livingness. There is no person or entity to become enlightened. I think that is a big stumbling block. Well, that is a big stumbling block. People think that I will become enlightened. And enlightenment is a personal Armageddon. It's the destruction of the sense of self. It is the barrenness, the loneliness and longing and emptiness. And out of that, one emerges into this almost paradise of simply being without any attachment. I see my granddaughters and my grandchildren as beautiful talking heads, as galaxies of self-referential memories. Beautiful. I see people that way. I see, or it is seen here. I don't feel there's an I seeing. There's just seeing. I see everyone as incredibly pristine. I don't relate to people on the level of non-duality. I play with them. I saw a Hispanic friend at the pizza parlor, and I walked up to him like I was going to fight him, and he was with three of his workers, and he stood up like he was going to fight. And so I was watching his workers, which were all very strong and young, and they were going to defend him against me. Ah, ah, ah. And then we started to laugh, and he came up and hugged me, and as they were leaving, they all waved goodbye to me. That spontaneity, that joy, that fun, that it's like being childlike and child very much, and it's so beautiful. But you'll never become enlightened. You don't even exist.
So I just wanted to say, so 10 seconds, I'll be very quick. Just responding to something that Christopher said. Christopher said, spirituality, there's so much to it. Well, I would say spirituality, there is so little to it.
Oliver?
I would also add at the end, I think the common sharing point between the topic of psychedelics and spirituality is to see that there are infinitely much more to see, and there are unbelievably much to unlearn and question. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. I was just reading Laurie's message and couldn't quite believe that she was 60. It's a little shocked. You were in your 20s or 30s. So that's where my mind was.
And Claire, just one more thing. It was, we never spoke about Ramdas, but he was the one that started the whole psychedelic thing, encouraging people on this to do psychedelics.
Oh, anything else you want to say before we close on that?
All I wanted to say was, which I felt was so important, was lots of times people have a spiritual kind of awakening. I'm looking at within inverted commas, or Michael will this. People who have a spiritual awakening also have kind of like a psychosis, like they go through like a lot of things. And when they go to a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist like thinks that they are something is wrong with them mentally, you know, and which is not the case really. Sometimes it's just that they're going through this kind of awakening experience. But I mean, I know one of my friends went through that. When she went to the doctor, they put her on disability. So yeah, sometimes you have to be careful of that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, well, thank you so much, everyone. This has been such a lovely meeting, and I just think we all get so much joy of coming here together and looking, as Michael says, just looking at everyone. Rowena's driven all the way from England to Belgium today to be here, not just to be here, but she's done that today and now she's here. And I really appreciate everyone taking the time. So thanks very much, and I will see you all for the next one.
Thank you, Claire. See you for the next one.
Thank you.
Much love.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.